guys, it's Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. My hair looks so messy, what the heck? Anyways, today actually marks my first fall video of 2023. If you guys don't know, fall is my favorite season. I just love it so much, like the aesthetic, the vibes, Halloween, coziness, and books. Like there are so many books that I associate with fall, and if you're looking to get some good recommendations, I have a wide variety of genres as well as a mix of series and standalones. So there should be something for everyone in here, and they're all perfect for the fall time. Also, I'm sure nobody noticed, but in case you did, yes, I did get my braces off, so yeah. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment if you want to see more book content. I also make lots of other content, vacation vlogs, school vlogs, book videos, all that type of stuff, and I'm trying to be more consistent this school year because I kind of slacked last year, and I'm gonna do better this year because I love filming videos. So yeah, let's get into the recommendations. So I'm going to separate this by genre rather than standalones and series because I feel like genre is just more like general, easier for people to skip through if you want, so I'll have timestamps down below. I only have a few from each genre, but I think a lot of people, when they think of fall, they think of mystery thrillers, so that's what I'm going to start with. I have two recommendations for you guys. So the first one is going to be Layla by Colleen Hoover. I'm sure you guys have heard of Colleen Hoover if you're anywhere on the book internet. Yeah, her name is pretty big on here. But this book, personally, I really enjoyed, and it's perfect to read in spooky season. So this book follows our main character, Leeds, and in like the prologue or like the first chapter of this book, he meets a girl named Layla. And as soon as Leeds meets her, he's kind of like convinced that she's the love of his life. She like fell from the sky, landed right in front of him, and is like this perfect wife for him. He's gonna marry her. Eventually, very early on in the book, it says this on the back, so it's not a spoiler. It's kind of the whole premise of the book, actually. Layla gets attacked, and it leaves her very scarred mentally. Like, she's physically okay, but she is just acting very different and very weird. But Leeds is still convinced the girl he loves will come back to him. She just needs to be reminded of what they have. So he takes her back to the bed and breakfast that they first met. But as soon as they get there, things start to go really strange, and he's noticing a lot of paranormal stuff going on, like, you know, the typical haunted house sort of vibe. And Layla also starts to act really weird as well. There are some ghostly characters, but I don't want to go too into detail about who they are. It does say so on the back of the book, but I feel like that's a little bit too much information going into this book. So I would say that's all you really need to know. It is a paranormal thriller with romance and definitely a mystery, a big plot twist at the end that I did not see coming at all. And I really liked it. I highly recommend you read this fall because the cover screams fall, the premise screams fall, the book itself screams fall. It's just perfect. Read it this October. The next mystery I have for you guys is Ace of Spades. So I read this one like 2 falls ago, so I'm gonna need a little bit of a refresher. Okay, so it takes place at a private school academy, which definitely a perfect fall academic setting. The two like top students in the senior class, they are like people everyone knows. One of them is going to be valedictorian, the other is going to be salutatorian. After an announcement is made that they picked as the senior prefect, someone who goes by the name Aces starts sending texts to the whole school, basically revealing secrets about the two of them. Like, he's only targeting them, and that is basically this book. They sort of have to reluctantly team up to figure out why this person's targeting them. And they are also the only Black students at their school, so this book does deal with topics of racism, like institutionalized racism and discrimination, and it's a very important read, and it's definitely still like spooky, thrilling for fall, but I think it's also super important to read and has a lot of important messages, and it's just a really good book. I highly recommend. And I remember being slightly disturbed by some of the things that were going on behind the scenes, but nonetheless, it was a very good mystery. Last mystery thriller, remember when I said I'll give you some series? Well, here is a series. So, One of Us is Lying trilogy. It just became a trilogy. It was supposed to be a standalone, and then she wrote a sequel, and now she wrote a final book. Also has a TV series adaptation, which I will say is very, very different, other than like the general surface level synopsis that I'm about to give you, but basically everything else is different. I'm just gonna give you guys a quick rundown on the basic idea of One of Us is Lying. You can decide if you want to read the books or watch the show, or do both. I would recommend watching the show because I think it's just a lot more drama and a lot more suspense, but the books are still good. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, the movie's better, the book is bad. Like, no, I love books. But in this case, yeah, I kind of do think that. But anyways, One of Us is Lying. Basically, 5 students enter detention on the first day of school, 4 make it out alive. They're all different high school stereotypes. There's the beauty, the smart girl, the bad boy, the athlete, and then like the weird kid. So yeah, the weird kid is killed, and he also happens to be the owner of a online gossip website that drops secrets about the students at Bayview High, and all 4 of these students were going to be written about because they all have big secrets, so that makes the 4 of them suspects. We get all their point of views, and we go along with them as they're trying to figure out if one of them is lying, if somebody's framing the 4 of them. They don't know who to trust. Are the police gonna solve this? Yeah, so that's basically the general consensus of this book. And there are 2 other books that follow a little bit different storylines that I won't get into because obviously you need to read the first book to read the other 2. But the second one is basically like a game of truth or dare, kind of like someone's kind of like being a copycat of the gossip website. And then One of Us is Back. That one I definitely can't say what it's about because it's a huge spoiler. But yes, I think you should read these this fall if you want, and then if you like them you can watch the show and see which way you want to believe because they have very different endings. But the show did get canceled, so if you don't want your heart broken, you don't want to get attached to the TV show and the actors, maybe don't watch it because it got canceled after a huge cliffhanger. But it's okay, we're moving on to the next genre, which I guess I have sort of one that's like historical, but it still is definitely mystery. So I could have put this in this category, but I'm just gonna make it its own thing. So it is a series. It is called the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. It's a 4-book series. There is a novella, but basically in this series, I'll hold up the first book for you guys, Stalking Jack the Ripper. But in the series, we follow 2 main characters. There's Audrey Rose Wadsworth and Thomas Cresswell. I love Thomas Cresswell so much. I love both of them. But Audrey Rose is the niece of what is it called when they work with dead bodies? But basically, her and Thomas end up getting sort of like paired up to solve a mystery. And that basically happens in all these books. They all have different settings, which I love. Like the first book is just set in like Victorian London. Then the second book, they go to a boarding school and a murder takes place there. The third book is on a cruise ship, and then the last book, they go to America. So I love how they all have a different setting and a different mystery, but you should definitely read them in order because the romance is like the best part of the series in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I love the mysteries. They're all really well written. I didn't really guess the killer in any of them except for this first book, but besides that, I was super surprised by the killers. Audrey Rose and Thomas are just adorable. I love them so much, guys. This is the perfect series to binge this fall. You will get attached to the characters though, so proceed with caution because once it's over, it will feel like your life is over because there's no more content to be read about Thomas and Audrey, and they're just so cute. But yeah, this series I definitely recommend, and it's perfect for fall because it just like gives fall vibes. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's perfect for fall and winter. I have a couple of fantasy. The first 2 are series. The first one being The Raven Cycle. The first book is called The Raven Boys. It's by Maggie Stiefvater. And The Raven Boys follows a group of private school, rich, privileged boys who are going on a little sort of side quest outside of their school lives to discover this sleeping Welsh king. Yeah, they're a super close-knit group of friends, and one day Blue Sargent, who is the main character of this book, overhears the boys talking at a pizza place, and she decides to sort of come into the conversation, or they sort of sway her in, but somehow she gets swept up in the world of the Raven Boys, which is their friend group. And basically, throughout these 4 books, we follow them going on this quest while also dealing with their own personal things. They all have kind of hard home lives. And another thing I didn't mention is that Blue Sargent, the girl in this all-guy friend group, her whole family basically is psychic. And they have told her since she was born that if she kisses her true love, then they will die. So she has that little curse prophecy thing on her. So it gets a little difficult when she starts to fall in love with one of the Raven Boys. But yes, I love this series. It's one of my favorites. I'm going to reread it this fall because it has like paranormal elements and then like with the psychic elements and everything. And then like some scenes take place at school, so it has that academic setting. Everything about it to me just screams fall, and it's super cozy, like the found family feeling in this. There's just super cute group of friends, and the romance, there's 2 romances actually. 2? I think there's 2. There's 2 really good ones. Going off of that, another series, this one I literally just read, but it is the Infernal Devices trilogy by Cassandra Clare. First book being Clockwork Angel. These may look familiar to you. You probably have heard the name Cassandra Clare, again, if you are on BookTube, Book Talk. And if you haven't read any of her books, you are probably one of those people that does not want to, because there are so many. That was me a year ago. I found an old TikTok I made about books I will never read. I read them. But now, a year later, I wish she had more because you get so attached to the world. It is so addicting. And the order could be a little bit confusing, but this is the first trilogy by her I ever read, and also the only one yet. I am buying all the other ones so I can read them. But I'd say you can start with this. I just did a little bit of background research on shadow hunters. It's like YouTube videos sort of explaining background you need to know, because the book, I will say, jumps a little bit into it, just assuming you know the magic system and have read her other books, but it doesn't, I believe, have any spoilers for other book series, because she has a ton of series. They're all set in the same world and the characters overlap. But this one comes first chronologically, so if you want to read it in the chronological order like I am, you can do that. Some people say there's better ways to read it, but like, who cares what they say? I'm sure there are better ways to read it, but I'm doing what I want, so I'm reading it chronologically. Anyways, enough of that little sidetrack. This book specifically follows Tessa Gray, and she has always thought she was a mundane, which is the name for us lowly human beings in their shadow hunter world, because this does take place in London in the 1800s, and she's kidnapped by these 2 creepy sisters who kind of give like hocus pocus sister vibe. What are they called? I forget. She then gets saved by these 2 boys. Their names are Jem and Will, and they are like this. They are super close with each other. They're actually parabatai, which means that they took an oath when they were like 12 or something to be by each other's side till the day they die and fight alongside each other in battles, jump in front of a bullet for the other person. Like, they care deeply about each other. So things get a little complicated when they both have feelings for her and she a little bit for them. And basically this whole trilogy is just that little love triangle going on with lots and lots of battles and politics, world building, found family. It just has everything I love in a fantasy series, and it's another one of my new favorites since it takes place at sort of, they call it like an institute, but I guess it could be seen as like an academic setting. I use that term loosely because it's not like a school or anything, but they are like sort of trained there to become shadow hunters. So I think it's perfect to read in the fall and you will get attached. Trust me, the last book will hurt your soul. Last but not least, for fantasy, this one is, I think it's classified as fantasy, but it could also just be like a literary fiction with some fantastical elements. It's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, guys, by V.E. Schwab. I love this book so much. It is about a girl named Addie LaRue who makes a deal with the devil to live forever, but what she does not know when making this deal is that there is a consequence to that, which is that no one will ever remember her. As soon as she walks out a door after a conversation, that person will forget they ever spoke to her, forget who she is. So nobody in her life at the time she makes the deal remembers her. She has to sort of start a new life fresh and explore the world as decades, centuries pass. But like, is it really worth it because no one's remembering her? Like, eventually she does come to find that one day she walks into a bookstore, she talks to the owner there, she leaves and assumes he forgot because, like, why wouldn't he? But then she comes back another day and he says something that makes her think he remembers her, and then she asks and he's like, yeah, why wouldn't I remember you? So yeah, that is when the story gets really good. I will say most people complain about this book being slow, and while I do agree with that, I think that is sort of the point, because Addie's life is slow because she's lived for centuries and no one remembers her, and it really hurts. This book is pretty sad, but I love it. And this cover just gives me fall vibes, honestly, and the plot too. I would say, like, it's cozy, it's fun, it's fall, just read it. Now, going in a bit of a different route, we are going to talk about some romance. So, first romance book I have for you guys is Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. So, Regretting You is told a little bit differently because we follow two storylines, two perspectives, which is a mother and daughter, which I do not see a lot, or really ever besides this book, in fiction writing. The mother, Morgan, had her daughter Clara when she was a teenager, and very early on in this book they find out something that happened. Clara's father, who's Morgan's husband, ends up passing away, as well as I think her sister, the mom's sister, the girl's aunt. So their life is kind of like thrown out the window. Like, they don't know what to do with themselves. They're starting this new chapter in their life with two people lost, but they found out that those two people did something, so they're both grieving, and it causes a lot of drama between the two of them. But during this time they also each find their own romance, which they're both really, really cute. I think I like the mom's romance a little bit better because it's sort of like childhood friends to lovers. This book was really good, really deep, really meaningful, and it takes place in the fall, so there's that. Okay, the next book I have is I Fell in Love with Hope by Lancali. I don't know the name of the author, but this book is, I'm just gonna say it, it's sad. It's a depressing read, honestly, and it's marketed for that. Like, it is known as being a sad book. It takes place in a hospital and follows a group of dying teenagers, and it's depressing, but it is so wholesome. There is one relationship in here, I kind of forget their names. What are their names? Neo and C. Oh my god, they were so freaking cute, guys. This book, it has skeletons on the cover, which I think it's for a different reason than fall, but like, you know, like Sad Girl Autumn, if you want to cry this fall, then read this book because it just follows their friend group, and it has so many good quotes, guys. Like, look at all these tabs. Those are all just quotes I love. I kind of am tempted to look through them, but I'm scared I'm gonna like cry because this book is traumatic. But it's so, so good. And again, I'm kind of not telling you a lot about it because I want you to go into it more blindly. Yeah. And on a happier note, to finish off the video, we have Better Than the Movies, which is the rom-com. Everybody knows this book. Everyone who's read it, for the most part, loves it. It's by Lynn Painter, and this book is great for fall because it takes place in school. So Liz lost her mother when she was a little bit younger, but her and her mom had a huge bond over the fact that they loved romance movies, and so she has grown up just being obsessed and wanting to find her true love, her soulmate, experience a high school romance. And when her childhood crush moves back to her high school, she thinks this is her big chance to win him back, to get the childhood friends to lovers romance that she always dreamed about. But she cannot do it without the help of her next door neighbor, Wes Bennett. Now, Wes Bennett and Liz have a bit of a sort of cordial neighbor relationship where they kind of have beef with each other, but they have to coexist on the same street. And they're not like enemies per se, but they don't love each other. Well, that's debatable, but they like fight over its parking space and it's a whole thing. But for the most part, they do become friends slowly, and maybe something more. And Liz sort of realizes that maybe her childhood crush isn't still the same person he was back then, and she just likes the made-up version of him in her mind better. But this book was very, very, very good. It has so many modern pop culture references, but they're not done in a cringy way. Like, there are Taylor Swift lyrics in this book. There are a lot of other things. I literally like annotated this book, like I wrote in it. Obviously there's romance movie references because she loves romance movies, but it's like good references. So don't let that sway you away if you think it's gonna be cringy. I promise it's not cringy. A little cheesy, yeah, maybe, but it's a rom-com. You've gotta love it. It's so, so good. And that concludes all of my fall book recommendations that I have for you guys. I hope you got at least a few recommendations from this video and will be able to implement them into your fall reading this year. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!